Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Crew podcast. My name's Stephen McCutcheon and I'm joined tonight by my fellow Celts, Willie, Gav and Steve. Willie, how are you doing and how was your viewing experience of another Celtic win over the bad guys?
Yeah, it was another great win over the bad guys. Quite calm and relaxed about it, even in the build-up. During the game as well, I wasn't too perturbed by anything that was thrown our way. So yeah, it was all good.
And Gav, how was it in the Borneo CSC? Was it going off?
Well, it was going off insofar as I was sitting on my lazy boy, watching it on the telly and swearing at the TV far more than my wife deemed acceptable in front of our 8-year-old boy whose own swearing we're trying to stop. So unlike Willie, I was a bit of a nervous wreck during the game, I have to say. But I rewatched it this morning, which was incredible insofar as it helped me reappraise the whole thing. And I was able to see things a lot more clearly. But we can get into all that nitty-gritty later. Okay. The result was everything. We got it. We're on for the treble. They're a shambles. We beat them yet again. And as Martin O'Neill said to Ange, absolutely fantastic win. Fantastic.
Great impersonation. Yeah, and I'm in awe of your preparation, Gav, watching the game again this morning. So good on you, mate. Get top of the class for that. Steve, how was your viewing experience?
Oh, it was very good fun. Sitting here, and I'm normally the nervous wreck, like Gav said, but I was actually more Willie than Gav on the weekend. I was, unusually calm, and there's probably some reasons for that, which we'll get into as we get into the pod. But yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, very good. I was pretty much the same. Watched it on the couch, too late at night for an old guy like myself to be going to the pub. So yeah, it was good. Enjoyed it. Always nervous in these games. Probably scar tissue from previous experiences. But yeah, I enjoyed it. But we'll get into the game a lot more in a minute. But just for a minute before we start, can we just talk a little bit about João Pedro Neves Felipe, otherwise known as Jota? An absolute legend, turning up in the popular Celtic bar, the Brazen Head in the Gorbals, last Wednesday afternoon, sporting double denim, the ultra iconic Bumblebee away top from the 1990s, where he played a few games of pools with the locals and posed for a few pictures. Now, this guy is just an absolute legend who just seems to fit entirely into the club, and I think he'll be remembered long after he's left, unlike some other players who come and go. So what do you think, Willie? Did you see all those pictures of Jota in the Brazen?
I saw the pictures. I might enjoy a game of pool and a glass of lemonade. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air to see him endearing himself to the fans in such a way. You know what I mean? He's going out there, he's trying to connect with them, he's trying to sort of see what Celtic are all about, and he goes to one of the most notorious boozers for all Celtic fans to go into, and like I say, it's a breath of fresh air. Could you imagine what the Celtic would try to charge if the Brazen Head phoned them up and says, "Look, can we get Jota come and open the bar for us?" Like, you know what I mean? It would cost them a fortune.
Yeah. And Gav, when would be the last time you were sporting double denim?
I'm not sure if I ever did. Yeah, the double denim's not great. The hair's not that great. I preferred the sort of George Michael bouffant of last year.
I think that's maybe
something of a hair expert, myself.
People in glass houses, Gav, and all that.
But I mean, it's great how much he loves the club, and he's really making such an effort. He gets Ange's football. He seems to get the club, and he's a big hero and best player in Scotland. Many people think, and as you say, he's going to be remembered, fondly. As we discussed a little bit before in a previous pod, it's how you engineer your departure from Celtic is quite important as to how you're remembered. So I just hope to God that when the time eventually comes, he leaves with our blessing, because he's a smashing player and a great fella.
And Steve, you'd be a regular on the Brazen Head back in the day.
Yeah, it was my regular haunt. I was pretty confident you were going to say when was the last time you sported a Jota haircut, but
I got that one.
no, I'm
Oh,
not
no.
overly familiar with the Brazen Head, I'm afraid. But it'll be on the list next time I go over. I'll make sure my brother-in-law takes me out there. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a very, very iconic bar, sitting down there in the Gorbals. I mean, it's not the most appealing place from the outside, but inside it's just all full of Celtic memorabilia all over every inch of the wall. I did used to go there myself before the home games occasionally back in the day. It was very good. I also noticed in the pictures they were handing him a copy of a CD, which was Era Og live at the Brazen Head. And I wonder what he made of it, to be honest with you. I was actually there the day they recorded that. So listen to it and you'll get a flavour of what it's like. They put it back on Spotify a few weeks back, so it's back on there now. So Era Og live at the Brazen Head. Listen to it and it'll give you a flavour of what the Brazen was like pre-match back in the day. So yeah, I thought that was great. It was great to see him just down there engaging with normal fans. And as Willie, that's a great point, Willie. Celtic would have charged you about £50 a ticket to see that. It'd have been a real earner for them, but it was good to see them just popping in.
I'm just having a look at their website, and their tagline is "You'll never drink alone," which I can imagine if Jota's in the building, he would never get left alone. But yeah, very good.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive right into the match head first. Borna Barisic style. I'll go to you, Willie, and just get your overview of the match and how you generally thought it played out. We'll drill into sort of individual aspects of it in a few minutes. But what was your general thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a decent enough game. It was a frantic start, and then once the game settled, we took control of the first half. We dictated the play. We got our goal. We'll go into that in more detail, thankfully, because it was a joy to watch. But the second half came, and Rangers came out stronger, and until about we made our subs in the 70th minute. Until about then, they seemed to have the bulk of the play, but at no time did I think that they were going to score. They didn't really threaten, other than Tarshan Sakala's claff, and then we just sort of saw the game out from there.
Steve, general thoughts?
So look, I thought our defence was phenomenal. So I know I've occasionally been a critic of Joe Hart, and I think Carl Starkfeldt's occasionally has the a mistake in him, but I actually thought the defence as a unit, Hart, the fullbacks, the centre backs were fantastic. Now, that's not to say that I thought Rangers were putting us under a huge amount of pressure, but they were just shelling crosses in, which is their thing. It's no great surprise, but it felt like CCD and Starfelt could have just, mopped them up, all day long. And the other thing I would pick out is our forward play. And Ange actually made a point of this after the game in terms of the forwards pressing and pushing and cajoling and pressing them into making mistakes. Because the easy narrative is, Rangers make a mistake again and Celtic capitalise on it. But the reality is that it's the Celtic pressing play that forces the mistake. Same as it was in the last game. So, yeah, I thought our defence was really strong. I thought our forward pressing was fantastic as a unit. I've got some observations on the midfield, but we'll save them for the detailed deep dive.
All right, I'll just bring in Andrew Galea from the comments. Andrew was very relaxed throughout. They never really threatened. They had a crack and fell short again. Gav, are you in agreement with Andrew?
Well, I wish I was like Andrew and could be relaxed throughout, because I totally wasn't. There was a time around 70 minutes or something that I was watching the game and I just had that shudder go through me thinking, okay, they're going to score. This is going to go to extra time. And, the summary that we've heard so far from Willie and Steve is accurate, but I didn't feel that at the time. Only on second viewing do I see that kind of was the case. We had by far the better first half. Loads of sort of chances, half chances, which I kind of forgot about. I sort of convinced myself that when it's the Glasgow derby, form goes out the window, it's all a mess. Nobody plays their own football. It's a scramble. Whoever happens to get the goal wins. And that's sort of a narrative that you hear. But we kind of played our football pretty well in the first half, I thought. And then the second half, yeah, they came into it more, but we still, again, had chances and still played some good stuff. I was really surprised by how good we were actually on second viewing, because I think you have a tendency to discount your own chances and maybe exaggerate the threat posed by the opposition in real time. So, on second viewing, it was a good win. We had to endure the pressure, all that stuff that Willie and Steve said. I wish I had the wherewithal to see it at the time and be more relaxed, but I don't have that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Gav. I'll admit I was nervous watching the game, but I think that was you only get nervous watching these games because of what's at stake. And ultimately, while it still sits at 1-0, you're just breaking the ball away from going to extra time. And you seen what happened when Sakala missed the sitter. That could easily have went in, and then we're on to extra time. And who knows what happens after that. But I agree with you. I think we controlled the first half. Around about the 30-minute mark, I just got the feeling we were going to score. We were starting to pass through their press really easily. We were getting at our wide players were getting at their fullbacks, and there was some good deliveries getting in the box. Jota had one that just went under his foot, but he should have controlled, and that would have been a big chance. And I was surprised. I wasn't surprised when the goal finally went in, but. We might just talk about the goal now, and how I know we're not here to talk about Rangers, right? Although we're going to talk a bit about Rangers tonight. Here's a spoiler, right? So, how bad was the goal from their defending point of view? And what were they all thinking? It started from they fell asleep at a quick free kick that Callum McGregor played, and he played it into O'Reilly, who advanced down the right, who was then blatantly fouled by Raskin. Of course, the ref didn't give the foul. Everyone in the stadium except the ref thought it was a foul, including the Rangers players. They all stopped. There was 7 of them, I counted, all who seemed to just stop playing. And the only one who didn't was Maeda. He's gone in. Great delivery. You can't fault the delivery. He's wrapped his foot around the ball and got it to the back post. And then it's another one for the Tavernier Hall of Fame, where he's just fallen asleep again and let Jota run in behind him and score a reasonable easy header. So, let's just have a laugh about that and take the piss for a bit. How bad were they, Willie?
Oh, it was terrible. I mean, you can watch Celtic. You've seen Henrik Larsson score his little chip. You've seen us score absolute screamers like Nakamura with a 30-yard breaker and that. But watching your rivals just fall apart like that and allowing something so simple to go in it's up there with that. Like, that little touch of that salt, he's sprinkling on it. It's just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was just like Raskin's giving it the old with his hands. Like, somebody go to it. Well, you're closest to it, Raskin. And then Barisic is he's all over the shop. And Maeda just goes round him on the ball. Beautiful ball to the back post, and just Jota's there, cleans it up. And as for the referee, that's what happens when you get a biased referee. We'll just let that slide. And if you actually watch it back, the referee's turned his back to play and ready to run up the pitch, as is Ryan Kent. He's ready to move up the pitch with Ryan Kent, and then all of a sudden, Maeda's off. Nobody's taking that out of it, And Tavernier looks twice behind him, over his shoulder. Jota's there. Jota's there. Ball comes out. Oh, Jota's there. Oops, I forgot about him. was a joy. Like I loved it. Like I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, Steve. If you were coaching an under-10 side, you would be annoyed at losing a goal like that, wouldn't you? Let's be honest.
Very probably. I mean, I genuinely laughed out loud. I was watching it on beIN, so I don't know if anyone else in Australia had the same issue, where the audio mix was really off, so you could hear the crowd noise fantastically, but you couldn't hear any commentary. But I rewound it because I thought, oh no, hang on, I've missed something here. There's been some massive sleight of hand. Someone's kind of cast a spell on the 7 Rangers players that are standing stock still. And to Willie's point, the one Rangers player that's not standing stock still was Ryan Kent. He was running away from the, from the Rangers box, and I genuinely thought, no, I've missed something. So I rewound it, and looked at it, and I thought, no, that's just them. But it's the same narrative, I mean, without going too deep into it, you read, and it's my guilty secret, I've said it before, I listen to some of their podcasts. I'm deep undercover on Follow, and a few others. But you read some of their threads, and it's kind of like, it's just the defence letting us down. And it's just the attack that can't score. And the midfield that, it's kind of like, other than the defence, the midfield, the forwards.
Yeah. What have the Romans ever done for us?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Right.
But I mean,
the manager, don't forget him.
Yeah. Oh boy. We'll come on to some of the more broad observations in a moment. But in terms of the goal, no, I mean, I genuinely laughed out loud. And my wife had literally just got to bed. She said, no, I can't stay up, and she could work in the morning, blah, blah, blah. And she came running back in, she was like, what happened? Why are you laughing? I said, I'm laughing at the Rangers, and their comical defending. So, yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah, and another iconic goal celebration to go with it. Another one that'll be selling prints of that in the Celtic shop. If they're not doing it already, I'll be very surprised. They should be out by the end of the week. Gav, your thoughts on the goal?
Well, I echo what everyone said. It was hilarious. It was a mistake, obviously, but the question is, would it have been punished by many other teams? Certainly none in Scotland might have done what we did. It was a bit like the back pass to the defender where Kyogo nipped in a few games ago and turned that into a fatal mistake. It wasn't much of a mistake, but because it was against us, it became fatal. And the same with this one. And to echo what Steve was saying there, this whole narrative of you only win because of our mistakes argument that they're clinging to, it's just so idiotic. Makes no sense. You exploit your opponent's weaknesses, find ways to break down their defenses and attack them. And Jota himself said an interesting thing in a post-match interview. He said, we aim to be always good in every moment of the game, and you need to be focused because there's always mistakes. Football is made of mistakes, and you need to be able to understand when to take advantage of that and just be smart. I think football is about that, and whenever you have the opportunity, if you have the talent, if you are ruthless on your chances, you get the opportunity to score, and today was no different. So, it's a part of the game. And for these idiots to be saying that somehow it does us down, that we only score when they make mistakes, is just so lame and hollow and embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So I'll just bring in JJI from the comments here. So he said, must be embarrassing for so-called professionals. That was Sunday League stuff. Raskin blaming Barisic, Barisic's blaming Raskin, and the captain sleeping amongst others. So, that's very true. Although I think it was worse than Sunday League stuff. It was just awful. So, the first half, so we're going at half-time 1-0 up, fairly deservedly 1-0 up. And then we come out for the second half. Were we expecting any changes at half-time? We came out the same 11 for starting the game. I was kind of expecting him to pull Hatate at half-time. He wasn't having much of a game. were we surprised that the same 11 came out for the second half? With yourself, Steve?
Yeah, no, I thought the exact same thing. I mean, obviously we all love Hatate. He's coming back from 3 or 4 weeks out. And, you know, you have to trust the manager at the end of the day. He sees him train all week and he, you know, makes a call and you know, he'll get all the data to inform the decision around whether he's ready to play or not. But the eye test in the first half, you know, and the Tatis game, I was trying to explain it to someone earlier this week. I was saying he seems to always be in the right spot, you know, whether it's about, you know, intercepting, you know, an opposition pass, or whether it's about making space for himself to receive, you know, a teammate's pass or whatever. He always seems to be in that right spot. He makes, you know, he's always moving. He's always, you know, and he just looked off it. You know, not as dramatically off it as Moy was in that game where he came back from injury. And we'll come on to him in a moment, you know, in terms of this weekend's game. But he just wasn't himself, you know. So I really did expect him to come off, and probably the natural replacement would have been Iwata to come on. But again, you know, you have to just trust the decisions that the coach has made. Let's be honest, you know, he's built up enough credit in the bank for us to to trust him fully. So yeah.
Yes, I'll just bring in Mahesh from the comments. Mahesh, one of our regular contributors. Welcome, mate. Celtic had momentum control first half, but allowed Rangers to have too much momentum in the second till the subs started to work. Celtic conceded too much ground second half. So, Willie, do you agree with that? Do you think we did absorb a bit of pressure at the start of the second half? Do you think that was sort of nullified when we made the substitutions?
Yeah, I seem to think that, like, when our subs came on, that was about the 70th minute or so, we seemed to take control back. Aaron Moy seemed to pick up the ball, and he didn't waste it. He seemed to do whatever he needed to do with the ball and do it right. I wasn't really keen on taking O'Reilly off. I thought O'Reilly was having quite a good game, but it seemed to work. Wata comes on and he doesn't waste the ball a lot. He seems to he sold a short one when he first came on, but other than that, he's really tidy in possession. So from there on in, we just seemed to see the game out. We just played our game, and we didn't let the occasion get to us. So it was good. I mean, the second half, Rangers, for me, like, when we were under the cosh, Rangers were pressing high and trying to make it narrow. They were pressing our back three and Callum McGregor, and trying to draw the full backs in to try and make space for an overlap for Barisic and Tavernier to get the crosses in, because that seems to be their main outball. But as Steve said, Carter Vickers and Starfelt, they were just soaking it all up, pumping it back up the park. There was no threat there really from them. I watched the game back like Gav did, and yeah, there was no threat from them at all. So
yeah, I think they were just shelling balls into the box, and really, when Morelos, useless though he is a target for a long diagonal, and he can get round the back and cause a little bit of trouble. But when he went off, there was nothing really. They were just shelling balls into the box for the sake of it. And as you say, Starfelt and CCB were just gobbling them up. It was just heading everything away. So I'll go to you, Gav. How do you think the substitutions improved things from our point of view, and who'd be a standout of the three subs who come on out of Moy, Iwata and Haksabanovic?
Well, probably quite an obvious answer, I think, to that. With the benefit of hindsight, Moy was maybe a better shot to have started than Hatate. We were never to know that. But, I mean, he came on and he looked like he was ready to play in a way that he hasn't over the past couple of games. So thought he was great. Iwata got his heels clipped quite early on, not long after coming on.
Yeah.
You know, it was quite... I that might have curtailed his influence a little bit. I'm not sure. But on that point, it was a bit of a bruising encounter, wasn't it? There was a lot of players feel it the next morning. Obviously, Johnson hobbling about, Kyogo getting smashed early by Lundstrom, and various others, that we'll come on to him later, but Cantwell, nipping at people's heels. And it was quite a bruising encounter, but yeah, the subs ultimately did help us sort of stabilize things and improve things, just bringing that element of control back to the midfield. I agree with the comment from Mahesh, I have to say. And there were a few too many balls in the box for my liking, I mean, it's one thing to say it's meat and drink to our excellent defense, and it was, but all you need is one to drop to that more or less, and he'll score.
Yeah. And what did we think of something that's been mentioned in the comments here by Mahesh, which I'll just bring up just now? Coaches must have seen the data and had a word with Hart during the week, came off his line more than usual to nullify Rangers' real threat around the 6-yard box. So it was noticeable, wasn't it, that Hart was coming for crosses and punching them really well, to be fair. A couple of his punches always landed up in the halfway line. So that's something you don't normally see from Joe Hart. So I think Mahesh is probably onto something there. I think it was probably a deliberate tactic. Wally, do you think that was something we've Ange has pinpointed from previous games?
Yeah, I think previous games you've seen Rangers pick up second balls from loose headers and that. So if you're going to get the keeper to come out and punch it right into the upper fields of the upper of our own half, then yeah, it's probably going to work out better for you than having scrambles around the box, which could result in a little foul and let Tavernier into an area where he can ping off a free kick.
And if McGregor had been given the same instructions, who knows, he might have been off his line for the cross that resulted in the goal.
McGregor never leaves his line.
He was another one of the
never has been.
He was another one of the sleeping seven.
Yeah.
No, he's anchored. That's anchored without a W to his goal line. He absolutely never leaves his goal line. Never actually has, in fairness. But yeah, much to the chagrin of the follow threads.
Even with the clearances, like Joe Hart coming out and kicking it long was just it enhances his game. If Celtic were happy for him to play that way, it would enhance his game so much more. But you just see that little nervous side of him when him and Starfelt are trying to do passes between each other. And it's just it doesn't quite work. But when you see it there, like yesterday, it was so confident. His display was really good. Like.
Okay, I'll just bring Andrew Galea in. He's making a point. He was yelling at the telly when Moy made his double tackles. Yeah. And it was quite an impressive cameo by Aaron Moy. He struggled a bit for the last few games, but I thought he had a great 20 minutes or so when he came on, and he really sort of helped us see out the game quite comfortably. So do you think Moy's back to his best now after his issues post-injury? And do you think we'll see him getting a start in the next game? Willie, what do you reckon?
The next game is going to be a tough game. It's a tight pitch in Tynecastle, so there's a good chance he might come in there. We know that they're quite dirty and they'll come in heavy in their challenges, so you don't want Rio Otati coming fresh off the injury table to be going straight back onto it again. So you might see him come in and Rio Otati making a cameo from the bench this time. So yeah. With Moy, he seems to need a few games to get up to ahead of steam. So he seems to be getting there. So like it would be a bit foolish not to let him go again. Like, see if he's ready for it. Like.
I think that must be an Aussie thing because I mean Tommy Rodgick was the same. I don't know about you. I mean I love Tommy Rodgick as I may have mentioned on the pod previously, but he was always the same coming back from injury. You know, it would be 2 or 3 games where it would look, oh my goodness, slow, even by Tommy standards, but then he, would just glide in. So I think Moy's not dissimilar. It just takes a couple of games to get up to speed.
All right. So I think the sort of universal opinion is that Cameron Carter-Vickers was man of the match. So I think out with Cameron Carter-Vickers, who would have been your star performer from the Celtic side? Gav, who would be your pick of the bunch?
Well, I think our back 5 or back 6 even. after Ralston came on were all excellent. I think Starfelt, who I've also been critical of, was very good. You know, I thought O'Reilly had a good game. I thought he was always a bit of a thorn in their side. I mean, lots of our players had a good. Nobody had a bad game, really. I mean, well, maybe a couple did their usual, not much when they came on. Yeah, I'd probably go for Starfelt.
You wouldn't be referring to our Korean striker, would you there, Gav?
Well, him and Haksabanovic didn't do a great deal either, but O did his usual.
Yeah.
I mean, I think his name should be not OH, that. Because that's what he does.
That's harsh, mate. Very harsh.
Yeah.
It's a tough crowd. Tough crowd. I thought he actually did okay when he came on. I thought he took the game up the park for us.
Yeah, he looks keen and he runs about and he gets annoyed when the decisions go against him and he gives away a few needless free kicks. Fantastic. Champions League, here we come.
All right, so no O from you. So yeah, talking about the back six, I would just like to mention Anthony Ralston particularly. For a guy who's not kicked the ball for months, and I genuinely can't remember the last game he played. Someone could maybe tell me that in the comments. He was really good, and when he first came on, Rangers were pressing high, and they had us pinned back round about the corner flag for a bit, but he didn't lose his composure, and we played our way out it, and we saw it through. And I thought he was excellent for a guy who hasn't played any games. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Anthony Ralston, but I thought he deserved enormous credit for what he put into that game. Steve, did you agree with that?
No, I do. Very much so. I mean, he's been on the bench for a couple of weeks. I'm just checking there. Yeah, so he was out for about a month and then back on the bench, for a couple of weeks. So he was on the bench against Kilmarnock, against Motherwell. So he was clearly training fit, if not match fit. But I thought he came on. I thought he did really well. I mean, Alistair Johnson, we haven't really talked about him, but I mean, he was fantastic in this game, I mean, don't get me wrong, keeping Ryan Kent under control is probably not the biggest ask he'll have over his career, but he was fantastic. He was up and down that line. He's got phenomenal balance. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, and someone has mentioned, his ice hockey, not career, but playing ice hockey growing up, he probably developed that balance, but you just see players bound into him, and he really doesn't rock that much. So yeah, I mean, obviously he was a loss to go off, but
he certainly showed impressive balance when he was bouncing around on one foot, waving his crutches in the air after the games.
That was the funniest thing, honestly. And Rio Hatate saying, "Calm down, mate. I'm not being funny. Do the other one."
You got a moon boot on.
Yeah. But no, I thought Tony Ralston came on and did really well. And I think he's just a really good, honest, professional player. Let's be honest. I wanted him to be successful, but a couple of years ago it was looking really unlikely. We all thought he was on his way out, but he's really turned around. And going back to that comment around Jota and how much he gets the club, I think as players they probably appreciate how the club is developing them as well. I think Jota and Ralston and other players, they must look at their own trajectory and they must think, actually, I'm improving as a player, and that's obviously down to my application, but it's also down to the club's investment in me as well. I think they do appreciate it.
And get well soon, AJ and all, but I'm looking forward to Ralston getting a few games. I feel sorry for him that he's been sort of squeezed out this season to a large extent.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we hope AJ is not too badly injured. We'd love to see him back for the cup final, and for maybe Flag Day, last day of the season. But yeah, you're right. Ralston exceptional. A couple of comments here agreeing with that. Michael Ross, I'll bring his comment up. Says Ralston always gives 100% and has improved under Ange. And he certainly has. You consider he was out on loan at St Johnstone. and Dundee United, and didn't really impress on loan, and came back at a time when we didn't really have a right back, and he was playing there by default. But he's gone on and really improved under Ange, and he'd be in the running for the most improved player at the club, I would say, for given where he started from, where his starting position was. So yeah, absolutely brilliant from Anthony Ralston. Willie, what about Daisen Maeda? What is he on?
I don't know. I don't know. I think he's still running right now. Like he's an energizer bunny, and he just keeps going and going and going. And he's on the right, he's on the left, he's dropping down deep to help out in defence. He's crossing the ball in, and all of a sudden they've got a breakaway, and they're up the pitch. And who's that at left back? Oh, it's Daisen Maeda. It's doing the captain. He just covers every blade of grass on that pitch. It's just something different, you know what I mean? It's just brilliant player. And one of the great things about him is like one of their most dangerous outballs is Tavernier penalty, and he's getting up and down the right, but Maeda pins him into the fullback position. Tavernier is scared to leave his own half when Maeda's there because he knows he cannot beat him for pace, and he knows that if that ball gets anywhere past him, then he's gone. That's it. It's all over. So it's brilliant. Like for me, he was just that ball he put in to Jota at the back post. It was just a touch of class. Like, you know what I mean? And to have the wherewithal to say, right, well, they've all stopped. I'm going to go in there and get this ball. Like, it's just brilliant. Like, you know, it just sort of typifies that we never stop mentality that we have there.
Yeah, I think he went down with cramp with about 5 minutes to go, and I thought, my God, cramp? I mean, it'd be open heart surgery for me if I'd put that amount of effort into it. I mean, he's incredible. The amount of time he nicks the ball off the toe of a Rangers player or an opposition player who think they've got plenty of time and just underestimate his speed is incredible. So I would give him a mention for man of the match. Behind, I agree with Gav. Starfelt for me behind Carter Vickers, but after that, I'd say Maeda. Who be your pick, Willie?
I had Starfelt. I thought the two of them at the back was brilliant, but I was going to give special shout out to Joe Hart and Maeda because I thought Joe Hart was commanding, and I thought Maeda just, like I said, he covered every blade of grass on the pitch. Like, it was just brilliant to watch. Like.
A couple of good saves from Hart, and certainly his punching and his commanding of his own box was much better. So that really did nullify their threat, especially late in the game. So just moving on to the opposition for a minute or two, or maybe even three. Can we talk a little bit about Todd Cantwell, who I've seen it on some of the Rangers socials, some sort of suggesting that he had a good game, right? But I must have been watching an entirely different 90 minutes because to me, he did absolutely nothing in the game apart from G up the crowd a couple of times, apart from trying to hide the medical bag from Rio Hatate so he couldn't get a drink. And also, he was completely ineffective in what he was trying to do. And for anybody to say he had a good game is frankly laughable. Gav, what was your views on Cantwell, the TikTok superstar?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping you weren't going to come to me first on this because I find it interesting that this is the narrative that we hear now and across all the Celtic fan media. All the focus is on Cantwell, and I think even in your notes, you were like, let's talk about their worst performing players like Cantwell. And I would say a host of Rangers players worse than him. Up front, Kent and Morelos were terrible. Tillman wasn't much better. Their full-backs were crap. Rumpelstiltskin was the most at fault for losing possession leading up to the goal-bound cross. And Sakala, missed that, open goal, as they're all calling it. It kind of was. So, Cantwell, I would say his behaviour and antics were that of the first syllable of his name. But relative to his teammates, he did perform like the second. I thought he was. It's understandable why they say he was their best player, because he was always asking for the ball. He was trying to do things. I mean, I don't like him. Don't get me wrong. I find him an insufferable little prick. But, you know, what did he do? He didn't hide. He was trying to move the ball quickly. He was trying to make forward passes, which he couldn't because there was no movement in front of him from their front players. He sprayed one long crossfield pass to Kent, which was nice. He headed down to Tillman in the box, who was asleep. Could have got a shot away if he was on the front foot. So, sorry for the pushback, and I imagine everyone hates me in the comments and things, but I don't like him. I don't like him at all. He was horrible, wee prick, and, you know, I have no respect for his TikTok videos. But he wasn't the worst Rangers player on the park. And I can see why they're holding on to him as their one crumb of comfort, because they've got nothing else. There's literally nothing else. He's a twig in the ocean, and they're pretending it's keeping them afloat.
Kill the vibe, Gav.
I'll go to someone else next time when I'm looking for someone to agree with me. I should maybe rephrase that to say who was Rangers' funniest player. I think he was got to be the funniest player with the haircut and the water hiding and all that sort of carry on.
Yeah. And loathsome. He was loathsome.
Yeah. So, Willie, talk me through the incident where he tried to prevent Rio Hatate from getting a drink of water.
Well, I mean, what's he doing? I mean, that's just high school bully stuff, you know. I mean, there's that poster boy who's got the flash car because mum and dad's rich, and he's going to throw the water bottles away from the people he doesn't like. It's just like, grow up, mate. And then Hatate just goes round, and like Tavernier and Morelos, they're all sheepish. Here, just you take one, and they're just kind of looking at him like, "What are you doing?" Like, I just couldn't get over it. Like, what are you playing at, man? Is that going to make you TikTok famous? Is it? Are they going to have that as their? Is that going to be their Facebook profile pictures now? Him throwing the water bottle bags away, because that's all he really managed to do successfully throughout the game. Sorry, guy. But he's not high up on my list.
I'm not a fan. Don't paint me with that.
You're coming across as a fan, Gav. But, you know.
I'm getting the vibes, Gav. I'm getting the Cantwell vibes over you.
Yeah.
You can
45k a week he's on. Like,
You can see next week old TikTok Todd with TikTok Gav, you know, doing a duet, some dance or whatever. But
it was good.
Well, we've got a similar six pack. I'll give you that.
Is there a bit of hair jealousy going on there, Gav?
Maybe just a touch.
He has got a nice head of hair. I'll give him that.
Luscious.
Luscious, yeah.
Look, I would say the whole. I mean, I'll be honest. I actually can't, other than long diagonal shells into the box. I actually don't know how the Rangers play. You know, at the end of the day, they've got no real discernible style to me. You know, yet they use the fullbacks, but it's pretty much they use the fullbacks to, you know, ping these balls into the box. So if you would sit down and ask me to describe how Celtic play, you know, I could point out 5 or 6 things. And I'm no, you know, tactician, but, you know, I could pick out 5 or 6 things. Most of us could. You know, but when it comes to the Rangers, honestly, I'm a little bit lost, you know. But their game plan, as far as the weekend went, just seemed all about negating us. You know, it was about their front guys were less about actually creating. It was more about negating the ball getting to Kalmack, you know, because they know that everything goes through Kalmack and he's the starting point for, you know, so much that we do. It was about negating our quick play. So even when you'd think they would have momentum and they would be pressing, you know, they got a couple of corners in quick succession, but you know what? They were walking to the ball, you know, because it was all about trying to negate us and frustrate us, you know. That Lundstrom assault on Kyogo in the 3rd minute is about trying to negate Kyogo. It's about trying to probably put him in the air and land him on his shoulder and, you know, get him out the game like they did, you know, in one of the previous matches. It was all negative, you know, it was all it's hard to describe. It's not like there was anything proactive. It was all very, actually, this is how we'll won the game. And, the reality is, if they're thinking they can build a team around TikTok Todd and, the Hobbit, honestly, I look at that and I just laugh. I just think, if you're shopping in the Championship and the English First Division, A, is an expensive place to shop, and B, frankly, they're probably looking at Bosman's, so albeit expensive in terms of wages, they're probably looking at Bosman signings. Surely that's, if that's their ambition, it just seems ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, And I guess we'll come on to that as we get towards the end of the season and we start thinking about our, summer season and signing targets and how we improve and think about how our opposition would, rebuild. But it just seems ridiculous, the idea that this narrative that they could build, a team around TikTok Todd and Nicola Raskin, it just seems, frankly, quite laughable. But,
Good pronunciation, though, Steve.
What, TikTok Todd?
No, Raskin.
Yeah, I felt that the Rangers' tactics and style was very reminiscent of what we'd seen the week before from Motherwell.
Yes.
To be honest, I'd say they're just a slightly more sophisticated version of Motherwell, St Mirren, and every other team that comes to play Celtic and tries to negate our style, tries to slow the game down. We've seen it from Motherwell with time wasting, with injuries and all that sort of stuff. And it's all about trying to stop, try to get around Callum McGregor and stop our passing lanes from the centre halves forward. And no one else has been able to do it. And Rangers ultimately couldn't do it either. But just getting back to TikTok Todd for a second, the one where late on in the second half where Maeda got booked for shouldering him off the ball, when you watch that one back in slow motion, Toddy boy tries to lead with the elbow. So he's trying to get a piece of Maeda with his elbow and ends up getting absolutely bellied by Maeda onto his arse, and Maeda ends up getting booked. That was a terrible decision by the ref.
Yeah.
It was, but he wins a lot of free kicks like that. My hero Todd gets a lot of free kicks, gets the opposition carded. It's another feather in his dainty cap.
No, but there was another one. I can't find it in my notes now, but there's at one point where he breaks from the middle of their half and he actually progresses the ball well. And I'm actually looking at it thinking our centre backs are backing away from him. I'm thinking someone needs to take him. But then at some point he then just skies the ball over, our byline, but then falls over. And is appealing for a free kick, and then he gets treatment. So he actually gets the trainer on to, I don't know, treat his embarrassment. For the attempt at a pass or whatever it was. I don't know, but I mean, the guy's a meme. The guy's just like a walking meme. He's an idiot. But
that's one. He jumped in on Johnson, didn't he? Johnson was coming towards him. He just jumped into him, and Johnson just stood and watched him fall to the deck. But he seems to pick up the ball. He has a tendency to run straight across the pitch, not up the pitch, not back. He seems to pick up the ball and run straight across midfield and either try and drop a shot over or drop back. And there was a few times I've seen him just pass the ball to Raskin and stand beside him and wait for Raskin to make the pass. It's just, I can't understand what all the hype is. And like I said earlier, he's on 45,000 a week, so is he worth that? You know what I mean?
Money well spent, Gav. Money well spent.
Oh my God.
Yeah, look, I agree with Steve. If they think they can
millions.
build a team around him, then happy days for us. I'm here for it, as you would say, Stephen.
Bring it on. Yeah, let's just quickly touch on the referee. We like to talk about referees on the Tuesday crew. So Don Robertson, obviously the substitute referee after Willie Collum mysteriously went down injured in the warm-up with no one near him. Rumours that Willie Collum would get booked for simulation. are apparently wide of the mark. So, what did we think of Don Robertson's performance? I'll start with the one we talked about earlier when Lundstrom goes right through Kyogo. When I watched that at full speed, I'm thinking red card. I've seen other similar challenges given as reds this season. So, what did you think generally of the rest performance, Willie, in that particular incident? Were you thinking red?
Pretty poor. I wasn't thinking red. I thought that's definitely a booking, but I think he bottled it. And I don't know, as he looked at Kevin Clancy's performance in the last game, who took his yellow card out quite early and thought to himself, I don't want to get tied to this same mistake he made. Did he let it go for that reason or what? But I thought he was poor. I thought if anyone should have been sent off, I thought Borna Barisic should have been sent off. I mean, he does a basketball challenge. He just gets up and sort of smashes the ball out of play because it's going over his head. And was it Jota that was out there at the time? Jota was away, peeled off his shoulder, and he was away. He gets his booking, and then he dives for a penalty, tries to win a penalty, and that's another bookable offence. So he should have been off for that. I think the referee tried to let the game go, but it was more Rangers players he was letting the game go for, and if they were falling over, then he would give them the free kick. But then you look at what happened to O'Reilly; it's a blatant foul, and he just turns his back on it and decides, well, Rangers are going to get the ball here and run out the pitch. I better get my skates on and start moving up. And everyone's sort of looking in disbelief. Why aren't you giving this? So all round, it was quite a poor performance, I thought.
Yeah, the one where Tillman injured himself when he tackled inverted commas Greg Taylor. Never got near the ball. Took 100% of the man, and the ref gave a goal kick to Rangers. Shocking decision. But Gav, you're usually a fair appraiser of the referees, not like the other three of us. So, what did you think of the bold Don?
Well, I will throw that back to you with a comment that I read from a Celtic fan, which requires a bit of historical knowledge. And as we have three of our Celtic resident historians here. So the comment is this: can we recognize the magical Bobby Tate moment today? Robertson decided not to give us a foul at the edge of the box when Raskin took out Matt O'Reilly. Rangers defenders all knew it was a foul and stopped. Maida sprung into action, and the rest is history. Karmic beyond belief. Thanks, Don. Can you explain that to us,
I'll explain that one, yeah. So John Beaton, a notorious Hun referee from East Kilbride.
Bobby Tate.
Bobby Tate, sorry. Is that what I said?
Yes,
you're thinking
the other notorious Hun.
John yeah, sorry.
So many.
Yeah, Bobby Tate.
You're getting your notorious Huns mixed up.
There's that many of them. So yeah, Bobby Tate, an East Kilbride referee back in the 90s. I mean, Celtic were trying to stop Rangers 10 in a row in the 1998 season. The second last day of the season, Rangers were at home to Kilmarnock, and Celtic were going to Dunfermline the following day. Now, it was nip and tuck at the top. There wasn't much in it, but Celtic were slightly ahead. So if Rangers had lost that game, it was Celtic could win it the next day, right? So it was nothing each between Rangers and Kilmarnock at Ibrox. But bear in mind, this is before VAR or anything like that. So Bobby Tate added 7 minutes injury time on, right, to try for Rangers to get a winner. But lo and behold, during that 7 minutes, Kilmarnock run up the park and score. So backfired on him. As it happened, Celtic lost the next day at Dunfermline, but went on to win the league the following week at home to St Johnstone in a very famous game at Celtic Park. But also Bobby Tate, that was his last ever game refereeing, and apparently there's this thing with the SFA. They allow the ref to pick their last game that they wanted to referee, and he picked a Rangers game because of the aforementioned reason and being a notorious Hun. So that's the karma. He added on all that injury time for Rangers to score, and they conceded a goal. Did I get that right, Steve?
I have no recollection of that whatsoever. I
I
looked
know,
through
no.
that as well, but yes, I'm sure.
Bang on. Fraser,
Yeah,
is it
you're
Fraser
right.
Wright scored for Kilmarnock?
No, I think it was a guy called Ali Mitchell.
Was it Ali Mitchell?
Ali Mitchell, a guy who played for Kilmarnock for years back in the 1990s. I'm pretty sure it was him. It was hilarious karma.
So the implication is that Don Robertson in this game was given too much the Rangers' way, including that foul on Matt O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm.
And it backfired because we nipped in and scored.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
There's also people saying, oh, you want to see Robertson's body language after the goal goes in? His shoulders slump. He realizes he's made an arse of it. You know, I mean, I haven't seen that footage, but, you know, I'm sure it exists.
I think you've got to feel sorry for John Beaton as well, who was sitting down in the Crown Bar in Bells Hill, ready to enjoy the game, and got a taxi sent for him to get up and run as a fourth official. Did you see his face after the game?
He was fizzing.
Not a happy man. He wasn't happy.
He'd probably
at all.
sitting in that bar with a full kit on, like full kit one.
Yeah.
W anchor. I'm trying to keep my language. I've already dropped the bar on the day.
Isn't he related to one of the Celtic Down Under guys? Surname Beaton.
You saying he's Shane's uncle?
That's an allegation. That's really bad.
No, Shane's very keen to point out that there's no relation. Just a coincidence.
As a host of the Tuesday Crew podcast, I'd just like to disassociate us from that last comment. Yeah. All right. Just to be serious for a moment, just want to talk about what's going on with the Rangers fans. So there was a flag in their end, which displaying some fairly nasty imagery of an extreme right wing origin. I won't go right into what was actually on it, but it was very, very offensive to, I would say, 99.5% of the population. So my question for you guys is, are they getting worse? Is this sort of thing more on show more from them since they've been getting pumped by Celtic all the time, or do you think they've always been like this? And I noticed as well they're now back to singing the Billy Boys again, whereas I'm sure before the old Rangers went under, there was a thing where the SPFL were talking about taking points off them if that was going to be sung at their grounds, or ground closures or sanctions like that. But that just seems to have been let go now. So what do you think's going on with the fans? Gav, did you see the flag I was talking about?
I was hoping you weren't going to come to me there because I needed to cough.
Yeah, hope you're not going to do another Todd Cantwell.
Yeah, I did say I'd like to speak up for racists and neo-Nazis across the world. They get a bad rap.
It was a really well-designed flag. Nice. Colours were nice.
I thought you were going to go to somebody else who maybe knows more about these things, but I saw the various elements of that flag were picked apart, and the associations are obviously horrific, you know. It is disgusting. There's lots of ordinary, decent Rangers fans, of course, and there's no parallel between the two sets of fans, really. You know, Celtic as a club, the ethos of the club, open to everyone, all that kind of stuff. Rangers have kind of sell themselves as being for one set of people. We are the people, not you lot, us. So there's this us and them mentality. So if they define themselves by hating people who are, you know, look exactly like them and have the same amount of melanin in their skin, obviously they're not going to be terribly nice to people who are of color and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's all fucking horrible. And as I said a few weeks ago on the pod, if you're coming to Celtic recently, if you're an Aussie, if you're not part of the whole thing, you know, love your team for all the right reasons. Don't buy into all the nonsense and all the hate. I saw somebody else in the chat saying about how, you know, it's kind of the era we live in, populism on the rise, cost of living crisis going on, wealth gap ever growing, jobs disappearing for a number of reasons. So in that kind of environment, fascism does very well, flourishes. But, I think I lament the fact that we can't just all enjoy the football for the football, hate the opposing fans because there are local rivals. They're the second best team. But that's why I, get it right up to Rangers fans. But none of this other nonsense. I also saw a thing today on Twitter. I don't know if any of you saw it. If you see the Ireland Against Fascism Twitter handle, there was a bunch of guys in Northern Ireland after the game who were so angered by Celtic beating their beloved Rangers that they went round their neighbour's house, a known Catholic single mother, and started kicking her door and trying to wrestle her Ring camera off and saying, "There's Tigs in here, there's Finians in here," all this kind of stuff. So associating the sport of football and watching your team in a game with all this other nonsense is horrific, and it needs to be controlled more.
Yeah, as I may have mentioned before, I've been watching Celtic since the late 70s, and we've always known that there's a far right element in the Rangers support, but I don't feel as if it's ever been more blatant than it is today. And I agree I did see that video from Lurgan where the young girl, they were trying to kick her door in, and I also seen on Twitter today a guy from the hospitality section, the Rangers hospitality section, spitting on Celtic fans. So Willie, in your time, is it worse than it's ever been, or do you think it's always been like this?
It's difficult to answer that question. I mean, yeah, I think it is starting to get a lot worse. I think that hatred between them and us is becoming more vehement, and it's more on their side because we are doing so well and we are so successful that they're just hating it and they can't handle it, and it's starting to come out. I mean, you look at what's happened. Joe Hart's had glass thrown into the box at half time. He's come out and he's had to tell the referee, "Look, I'm going to walk off the pitch if you don't get this sorted." You've had Rangers fans going into the ground, so we're going to set up a tifo and they're stashing weapons around the place. It seems to be getting worse on their behalf, like, definitely. You see that flag there, it's absolutely disgusting. Like, there's no need for that in any way, shape or form in this day and age, like none whatsoever. And then you see them in Europe, they didn't take an away allocation because they were going to get the away allocation taken off them because of the racist chanting they were doing. So it seems to be more prevalent with them than it has been for a while. But I think a lot of that could come down to the fact that we are doing so well and they are not getting much success at all. So
yeah, I just want to go back. I think about a year now to something that happened here in Sydney at the Australia FA Cup final last year when an NPL team called Sydney United got there, who are generally associated with the Croatian population in Sydney. But in their support, there was a far right element, and they were chanting some stuff. They were making some gestures which were related to the far right. And the New South Wales government acted quite quickly to charge these guys, and the New South Wales police rather charged them with inciting hatred. And there was a couple of life bans handed out, if I remember correctly. Can you remember that, Steve? And I was just wondering, why is that sort of thing not happening in the UK?
Yeah, I must admit, the thing I've just written down is, it's a bit old school, but there's this theory around broken window, broken window theory, in fact, they call it, and it's around what you see as acceptable and what you walk by, becomes the norm. So if there's one broken window in your street and you walk by it, in a week's time there'll be 5, and then it grows to graffiti, then it grows, and it kind of originated in, I want to say, New York or something similar. But when you think about the behaviour from the Rangers fans, and it's certainly not all, let's be very clear, it's a not insignificant minority, yeah, and I'd argue the flag is at the extreme end of that. But we've also had kill all takes. We've had the re-emergence of the Billy Boys. We've had the famine song. We've had all these behaviours that are almost becoming acceptable and appear to be, the new floor, and things then, go beyond that, and the behaviours get worse from there. Now, what happened in Sydney? I had friends at that game, and they said it was pretty toxic. It was pretty obvious, what was going on. But the authorities just viewed it as unacceptable, and they used the CCTV. They identified the individuals involved. And, I think there's either prosecutions being completed or going through, and lifetime bans put in place. Now, we could spend a long time talking about ethnic origin soccer in Australia, and some of the toxic things that have gone on historically in Australia. It's pretty, it's a bit of a messy history. But the reality is, I think the authorities acted strongly in that instance, and hopefully they can nip it in the bud. But my worry is, unless I've missed it, I haven't seen anything in the mainstream media about that flag.
Yeah, nothing. There's been nothing at all. Nothing at all, and it's quite clear. It's quite clear from the TV footage who the guys are next to the flag. It wouldn't be difficult to identify them.
But Stephen, there's, you don't have to be bloody, the greatest detective on earth. There's pictures of the same guys in Europe, earlier this season. All standing, saluting the air in a certain style, wearing their black, with their faces blurred out. But, I'm sorry, bloody work it out. And my worry is, going back to that broken window thing, if this passes without comment or passes without action, then that becomes the new floor. That becomes acceptable to certain people. Maybe I might call them idiots and ignoramuses, but it becomes acceptable to, a section of that population. And, where does that then go?
Yeah, it's very sad to see, and I must admit, it has surprised me how brazen and out in the open it is. And you're right, Steve, there's been virtually no condemnation in the mainstream media, not even a mention of it. It was just as if it was a normal football banner that was there. And for me, no, it's not acceptable. Is there any concerns about us going to their stadium in a couple of weeks with no Celtic fans there, potentially as league champions? Given the fact that we've had coaching staff and players assaulted there before, and also you mentioned earlier, Willie, about stashing weapons inside the stadium, should we be concerned for that one, Willie?
There has to be concerns there now, because there's going to be a full stadium of Rangers fans, and we've seen that when they do act up. I mean, I think it was last week I was talking about it. A guy ran on the pitch to challenge Scott Brown. He was just escorted back to his seat, and he was sat back down. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, right, you're outside, you're out of this, you're never going to get to a football game for the rest of your life. He was just taken back in. Right, there's your seat there. In you go, sit down. So yeah, there's bound to be concerns. I mean, by the time you're getting your physio bottled, you're getting glass thrown on the pitch, there's obviously going to be concerns there. But are they going to have a full house? Because the mood amongst them right now is pretty bad. You might find that it's going to be a half-empty stadium there when we turn up.
Gav, I'll put this scenario to you. Celtic are 2-0 up at Ibrox after 20 minutes, and Jota goes over to take a corner just in front of the Copeland Road stand. Do you think it'd be a safe situation for a Celtic employee to be in?
It definitely has to be a concern. If we're beating them again and there's thousands of their fans frothing at the mouth, you would hope that there would be some extra security for our bench at least to to stop a fan running down and, assaulting the manager like happened to Neil Lennon at Hearts. Something like that would have to be a concern for sure. If I can just say a couple more things, slightly in the interest of balance, but picking up again on Steve's broken window theory, they may live in a street full of broken windows. Every house has got panes smashed, but I wouldn't say ours is entirely free of broken windows. There's no comparison between the two, but while a section of our fans are still singing that Super Trooper song, that's clearly something that we ought to address. I'm not saying there's a parallel in any way. And on the other side of things, to maybe end on a lighter note, there is one Rangers fan, something of a celebrity Rangers fan, who's definitely not a racist. And I think we all enjoyed checking out her Twitter this week. And that is Lana Wolf.
Yeah.
More power to you, Lana.
Yeah. She's got plenty up front. Let's just put it that way.
Gav's holding out for the dream team of TikTok Todd and Lana, doing some videos together.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
We're definitely here for that. Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, just going back to the Rangers and I said it at the beginning. It's not all of them. And there's different degrees of their fan base that see different things as acceptable. And in fairness to them, I've seen a lot of people come out and say, that's absolutely abhorrent. Don't want any part of it, etc. I mean, the reality is there's no self-policing. There's no, they seem to almost revel in the fact that, Chris Sutton was told, we can't guarantee your safety, so you can't come to the stadium and all the rest of it. And I just look at that and I just think, surely to God, someone somewhere is sitting there thinking, this has to stop, because it will escalate. Your scenario, Stephen, honestly, it will escalate at some point. And, I really genuinely worry about people's safety, when it does.
Yeah, I've got serious concerns about this game in 2 weeks, and I hope Celtic have as well, and are making appropriate representations to both Rangers and the police, seeking assurances that proper measures would be in place. And I certainly hope the policing, certainly round about the pitch, is certainly increased to the maximum level, because there is a danger to our players, and if you can't be sure that the players are safe, then how can you play a proper game of football? It's just not right at all. So yeah, I do definitely have concerns.
And that'll be our priority, is like getting everyone out of there safe. Mm-hmm. What the hell's going on in the world when that's the main concern?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
So on a lighter note, can't let us all go without this week's episode of Beale Shit. So after the match, I had a listen to Michael Beale's comments, and he actually said that the Rangers played quite well. It was just really one moment in the game that cost them, but then proceeded to say that all the players weren't good enough and were all getting sacked in the summer. So I was wondering, completely contradictory, of course, but I was wondering, if we do beat them in a couple of weeks, is Michael Beale going to be part of the rebuild?
Yeah, I think his job's safe until he fails next year, probably around October, and then he'll be gone.
Well, he's shown his loyalty. He's shown how loyal he can be to his employers. Oh no, sorry, hang on. That's the exact opposite of what he's shown. But I think it'll be taken out of his hands. I genuinely do. I think he's not going to get the budget that he's anticipating. The rebuild that they're talking about. I mean, they are talking literally 12 to 14 players leaving. and they're still holding out hope. This is the thing that makes me laugh. They're still holding out, hope. Maybe someone will come in for, Hadji and spend 4 or 5 million on Hadji, or, and all the rest of it. And it's obviously it's the hope that kills them repeatedly. But if I'm honest, I think he'll really struggle. He'll either not get the money he's after or he needs, and he'll walk, or to Gav's point, he'll hang around, for 2 or 3 games and then, combust.
Yeah, speaking of Hadji, I don't know if you seen him stretching before the game, before he came on as a sub. Very impressive. I mean, that was probably the most impressive thing Rangers did all day.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost got his testicles touching the ground during a stretch. So
that probably happens to you now as well, Stephen, given your age.
Yeah, it does. It happens when I sit down for my dinner.
There's an image.
I agree with you. I think Beale's, if he loses to Celtic, maybe loses another game in the run-in, I think he's in trouble. I think his job's in trouble, and they could be looking for a new manager before the end of the season. So that would be absolutely hilarious. So, all right, probably should wind it up at this point, unless anyone's got anything else they want to say.
No, we've gone long enough, I think.
All right, so thanks very much to everyone who joined us on YouTube. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us to grow the algorithms, whatever that means. Maybe somebody can enlighten me. And if you're listening to the podcast download, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media channels. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and all the handles are at the top of the screen there, or in the podcast notes. So I might just grab a final thought from you before we go. So Willie,
no real final thoughts for tonight. Just hopefully we'll get the win on Saturday and get the league title wrapped up.
Steve.
Similar, sooner the better. Close out the season. We're on the cusp of a treble, and I say that with all respect to ICT, who we'll face in the final. But let's close it out the way that Ange will insist.
Then Gav, anything to leave us with?
You're on mute, Gav.
Fantastic second season for Ange. Hope the story has several more to go.
Excellent. So my final thought is for yesterday. Many happy returns to a guy who was the best right back in the world in his day, and a magnificent Celtic captain. So I'll close the show with that, and I'll just say good night.
Diego Laxalt?
Apart from Diego Laxalt, I should have said that. I should have said the best right back in the world without braids in his hair.
Danny,
what a guy! We'll maybe do a piece about Danny in a future pod.
Yeah.
All right. So enjoy the rest of the week, guys. Good night. God bless, and here we go.
Cheers, everyone.